why was the Renaissance the period of time when we had the most like insane amount of art coming out? Not just art, like architecture, all these cathedrals that were built. Like it just seems like an absorbent amount of creativity was coming out during that time. And like, you know, people were creating stuff. I'm guessing that people were doing this stuff not just as like a thing for a return on investment. They weren't doing this because it was going to make them money. They were creating this stuff because something else was going on in society that was promoting like just a crazy amount of creativity, you know, like whether was it the climate? I mean, I'm sure the climate, the economy, like the religious culture that was going on. I'm sure there were so many elements that were contributing to that. But it's just interesting how that period in history is just known for so much amazing art.
Yeah, I mean, the very short answer is the church and the Counter-Reformation. So you had the church vastly wealthy who wanted to the Reformation said, hey, you can have a personal one-on-one relationship with God through your own reading of the Bible. And the Catholic Church said, well, yeah, that's all good, but you know, there also needs to be a hierarchy, and we are the institution on earth, which is, you know, kind of mediating between the two. So they wanted to, you know, bring these stories to the common person through the church, they wanted to illustrate it. Here's the story of St. Matthew. And there were, you know, you could make the argument that essentially these were comic books, graphic novels of their time for people to look at. And there was a tremendous, tremendous amount of money available to do this. And, you know, in the book, Con Artist that I wrote with Tony, you know, he talks a lot about how Caravaggio's his favorite artist, but like when Caravaggio came to Rome, it was like Hollywood was in the 50s or whatever. It's like every artist, every person, everybody who wanted to be a director went to LA, went to Hollywood.
Yeah.
Everybody who wanted to be an architect or an artist or a sculptor or whatever went to Rome, you know, because that's where all the commissions were coming from the church. You know, they were building these massive cathedrals, building churches, decorating them, chapels, everything.
Right. Yeah. And I think Leonardo da Vinci, he was also like, if I remember correctly, he was doing all kinds of things like developing things for war, like weapons and stuff for war and stuff like this, and like being commissioned to do stuff. Like, I mean, I guess a lot of it was just, he was just trying to feed himself.
Yeah. I mean, they like some Da Vinci, I'm not as familiar with his life because, you know, I want to stress that I'm not a great art expert.
Right.
But I do know, you know, a little bit. But yes, I mean, he was, some people would argue that he was an engineer first and an artist after, you know, so he famously came up with designs for like helicopter screws and, you know, flying machines and different catapults and instruments of war, like you say. And so, you know, when I talk to Tony always says, you know, that he was just as a boy, just fascinated with the notebooks of Da Vinci and was actually more interested in Da Vinci, the engineer, than Da Vinci, the artist, because he wasn't actually a very prolific artist. He worked really, really, really slowly. So it'd take him years to make paintings, you know, months and months and months to make paintings, whereas Caravaggio would make like literally a painting in a day, because when he first came to Rome, he was, you know, like imagine a 22-year-old person going to Hollywood because they want to be a director.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing. And so he got a job painting essentially like tourist postcards, you know, and he'd have to paint like these heads one in a day, or fruit. His job was to paint fruit, you know, still lives. And so he'd do one in a day, and that's how he would, you know, he'd make a I don't know, a penny or whatever.
Wow.
And he lived with this guy, Monsignor Del Monte, and he called him Monsignor Salad because he said that all he ever fed him was salad.
Really?
Yeah, he was just like, he was the literal starving artist.
Wow.
But that's what, that was the climate of the Renaissance. And that kind of points out, that for everything that we say about, the evils of the art market and, all this stuff, you must have patrons. You must have people who are interested in having art and want to pay for it or feel it's important enough in their lives that it's a priority for them to spend money on. Otherwise, no art.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to have the person who's commissioning stuff.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it is really interesting how it's evolved, especially like what we were talking about with the Cold War and art and the CIA trying to, through like second and third hand people, fund these artists and prop up this industry of art, of modern art, and to just basically like show that, hey, we're all about liberty and creativity and openness, and like we're so much better than the Soviet Union. And like, yeah, there was no like victims or anything. They weren't like kidnapping and torturing people. They were just spending taxpayer dollars on trying to drive culture and show how much better we were. And that was during the whole like McCarthy area too, right? So like,
I mean, that's why they had to use the CIA, because they had the first couple of shows. I forget what it was called. I think it was called Advancing American Art or something like that. And they bought all of these paintings from famous artists of the time.
Right.
And they put them out there, and then everybody came out and said, like, this is like, modern art is all communistic. This is all garbage. And Harry Truman famously said, if that's art, then I'm a Hottentot.
Right.
So, but
art,
you think about this, like everything that happens, basically starts with an idea. I mean, you go like, well, books don't matter, and all this kind of stuff. Well, they do, because everything starts with ideas, and that exchange of ideas is what makes like real world changes happen or things happen. So art of its time, and, depending on how you define art, I mean, what's the art of today? I mean, I don't know what you think, but, is it a painting? Probably not. Is it a TikTok video? Maybe. Is it, music? Probably. Is it a little video? Yeah, probably. Is it a meme? Yes. That's really the art of today. And think about how many ideas and how much our world has changed because of ideas that we're exchanging. So art doesn't look like it used to in the past.